to increase revenue. Mr. Golnik will go first and have 2 minutes.
Am I allowed to take any one of these bullet points? Is that up here? I'll start with should increases in taxes or other revenue be part of balancing the budget, and if so, what specifically needs to be done with increased revenue? Representative Tsongas and I have a philosophical difference on this issue. Representative Tsongas believes that we have a revenue problem in this country. I believe that we have a spending problem. We've never been able historically in a country to borrow and spend our way back to prosperity. And that's a bipartisan issue. President Hoover, who was a Republican, couldn't do it. Franklin Delano Roosevelt couldn't do it. The Japanese, and I know I'm off topic, tried for a decade to do it, and this administration has tried to do it. Again, we spent $800 billion to create or say 3.5 million jobs. We were told we could take this added debt because it would bring unemployment down below 6%. We're currently at over 8% for 44 months and counting. It hasn't worked. We need to cut spending. And I'm not talking about taking an axe to spending. The General Accounting Office did an audit of 1/3 of the budget and found $200 billion in duplicative programs. I say, let's audit the entire federal budget. Let's see if we can find $600 billion in duplicative programs. If that's the case, on a $3.7 trillion budget, that's 15% savings. There's many ways to stimulate the economy. You can print money, you can spend, the government can spend money, our money, because it is our money, it's taxpayers' dollars, or we can cut taxes. I often think that leaving $1 in a consumer's pocket will be spent much more efficiently than a bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. So no, I do not think we need to increase revenues. It's a code word for increasing taxes of working men and women in the district. I think that we have a spending problem, and we need to get that under control. We need to get it under control immediately. We've increased our debt load by more than 50% in the last 4 years. Everyone in this audience here has had to do more with less, live within our means, and the federal government should do the same.
Ms. Tsongas, 2 minutes.
I'd like to talk about the spending problem that got us here. That was the squandering of the Clinton surplus, the 2 wars that were put on a credit card, the tax cuts that were unpaid for, and the pharmaceutical Part D coverage extended to Medicare enrollees important but unpaid for. That is the spending that got us to this point, and we should not forget that. I think, and then obviously we confronted the extraordinary freefall in our economy that demanded a government emergency response. I do think as we move forward, we have enacted cuts. The Budget Control Act enacted $950 billion of cuts, which are now underway. But as we move forward, we want to be fair, responsible, and balanced. And that means asking those who have done the best in this country to do their part, and they may have to should give up the Bush tax cuts, but not for middle-income members of this country, because the middle income has suffered more than anyone, and as we leave money in their pockets, they put it back into our still fragile economic recovery. We can cut military spending. We've done a significant portion, $450 billion, but there is room for more as we bring down our 2 wars. The war in Afghanistan cost us $300 million a day, $9 billion a month. The military still has room to help deal with the debt and deficit issues that we face. And oil, gas, agribusiness, there was a time when supporting them made sense. No longer. They have to pay their part. So obviously there is a room for future cuts. We know that, but we also know that revenue, for this to be fair, balanced, and sustainable over time, has to be part of how we move forward.
Mr. Golnik, 1 minute, same topic.
Well, Representative Tsongas, I appreciate that you spoke of many different budget cuts that are occurring, but to be quite honest with you, the facts that don't corroborate that. We've had $1 trillion deficits for each of the last 4 years. We've had our debt load increase by 50% over the last 4 years. Anyone here who has a small business or is a homeowner, if you were to increase your debt load by 50% over the last 4 years, where would you be? You'd be out of business. You can't raise taxes on anyone when the economy is currently stagnating. 2% growth in 2010, 1.75% growth in 2011, and now 1.25% growth in 2012 projected just last week. We're moving backwards, not forwards. We do not need to raise revenues. And Representative Tsongas, if you're worried about raising taxes on the middle class, you shouldn't have voted for the Affordable Care Act. Thank you.
Ms. Tsongas, 1 minute. You're taking time from your candidates. Ms. Tsongas has 1 minute. Thank you.
I'd like to talk about the important role of small businesses in growing our economy. As a member of Congress, I came to learn more about a program called Small Business Innovation Research. We are home to many, many companies who take advantage of what has been one of the most successful research and development opportunities within the federal government. This was a program that was being challenged, was going to be fundamentally altered to the disadvantage of our many companies. And so we went to bat on behalf of these great innovators who create jobs and become the platform for growth. And as a result, I was very honored to be named the champion of small businesses by the National Small Business Association. This is something that is real, that makes difference, that contributes to the future of our country, that addresses problems that need innovation, many of them within the Defense Department, within our health system, and creates jobs and puts people to work. It's a way in which we can partner together.
Time is up. Still on the same topic of federal budget, candidates have 1 minute each. Mr. Golnik.
Representative Tsongas, I want to commend you on your award this PSI gave you, but PSI was also the recipient of $3.2 million in federal earmarks for fiscal year 2010. And that's great, that someone who has a relationship with you or knows you and you're able to direct monies towards them. But what about the thousands of other companies across this district that are struggling under increased regulation and the prospect of increased taxes? It's a real problem for these folks. I've talked to literally hundreds of these companies. And for these people who don't have the connections that this company that gave you the award, they're continuing to struggle. What are we going to do for them? How are we going to even the playing field to make sure that they can succeed?
Ms. Tsongas.
The role for regulation, I think all we have to do is look at the BP oil spill in which we all watched helplessly as BP had no response in place. This went on for months, and it was the result of our failure, whatever regulations were in place, failure to enforce them, and in reality, the regulations were insufficient. As we look at the freefall that was engendered by the Wild West that took place on Wall Street, and took place again because our regulators failed to engage in oversight or to even have in place regulations appropriate to the task. There is an important role for regulation. Are there instances in which we could come back on some of it? Sure. And I was the first to say within the health care plan that there was a requirement for small businesses. It really didn't make sense, and we led the way on that. But the reality is there are a very important role to play, and we see what happens when we fail to do it in a tailored, carefully targeted way.
Thank you. We're moving on to the third topic area, which is foreign policy.